Today I'm going to talk a little about flipping a big jig in the grass. This is one of my favorite techniques for fun fishing and tournament fishing. You can catch some of the biggest bags of your life doing this. And works pretty much any lake with hydrilla or milfoil, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to talk a little about the equipment you use for flipping grass. I like to use the biggest rod I can get away with. This is a technique that when you decide to do it, you really need to commit to it and do it most of the day, if not all day. And so you want something you're comfortable with, but at the same time you're trying to pull big fish out of heavy grass, so you need a big rod. I'd recommend at least a 7-foot heavy. I like personally a 7.5-foot heavy, and if you can get away with it, go even bigger. But heavy line's a must for this. You just can't get them out of that stuff with light line. I like at least 20-pound fluorocarbon. Most of the time I use 50-pound braided line, sometimes 65. But for me, 50-pound braided line works the best. And if for some reason you think you can get more bites on fluorocarbon, then at least 20 pound will work. As far as the reel, I like a high-speed gear ratio reel. That way you can reel down on them and get a much better hook set. If for some reason your rod's out of position and they hit it on the way down, you can pick up that slack real quick and get a good hook set. The jig I use is a 1 ounce Pro Mega flipping jig, and there's several reasons I really like this jig. It comes to the cover really well. It's got a big hook in it, and it comes in all the colors I need to imitate the bait fish that's in the grass, whether it's bluegill or crawfish. Most of the time I start off throwing black and blue. That's my number one color. I usually always start off with that, and if that's not working, I'll use something a little more natural, especially in clear water, but almost 90% of the time black and blue is a good place to start. All right, what we've got here is it's a flat in front of a spawning cove, and this is all milfoil right now. We've had a real cold winter and a lot of high water, and it's kind of killed off most of the hydrilla. So right now on this lake, you've got mostly milfoil, and that's what we'll be flipping today. It goes out to about 6 feet and makes a nice little edge, in about 6.5, 7 feet. So we're going to start out on the edge and try to stay around the edge and see if we can get bit out there. But if I can't, I'm going to move up in the middle and see if I can get a few bites in there. But typically that's where I like to start. That's where the biggest fish are, and usually the most concentrations of fish are usually around the edge. But especially with milfoil, they can bury way up in there, and they can be kind of scattered, which they're a little harder to catch, but you can still catch them. You just gotta cover more water. So we're gonna give that a try and see if we can get a bite. The way you fish this hydrilla or milfoil is typically it depends on how high the grass is growing, what time of year it is, and just the stage of growth the grass is in. But I like to be able to see it. It makes it a lot easier when it's just under the water or matted on the surface where you can see it, and it's easier to follow the edge and see the clumps. And that's where a good pair of glasses really comes in. But sometimes that's not always the case. Sometimes it's far enough under the water where you can't see it, and then that's when you have to rely on your electronics. And all you do is you just try to stay on the edge. You kind of got to zigzag in and out of the grass and make sure you're always right on the edge, and keep making short pitches. It's real important that when you're presenting that bait in the grass, you make short pitches within usually typically between 10 and 15 feet is about as far as you want to pitch it out there. What that does is it lets your bait fall straight down. It's a vertical presentation, and you want your bait falling straight. You want a little bit of slack in your line, but you don't want too much slack where your rod's out of position. Typically you want your rod between 10 and 11 o'clock, where when you do get a bite, you're able to set the hook right away, and you don't have to reel down too far, which takes too much time, and they can spit it out. So I like to keep my rod, you know, around 10 o'clock with a little bow in my line. So that way the bait's falling naturally, but I can still tell what's going on. And the bites will usually you'll just lift up and it will feel a little heavy or something's a little weird. And whenever you feel that, especially when you're first starting off and you're not sure if you have a bite, just go ahead and set the hook, because it takes a while to really kind of master what the bite feels like. Like I said before, when you're doing this, you want to make short pitches, and this is a technique where you really want to cover a lot of water. You want to be efficient with your pitches, but at the same time, you don't want to spend a lot of time in one area. So I like to keep moving. I stay on the trolling motor and usually keep it on about 30 or 40. I go at a pretty good pace where I feel like I'm not skipping too much stuff, but at the same time, I want to cover as much water during the day as I can, because when you're fishing like this, you're always looking for schools. You don't want to pick one off here and there. What you're really looking for is a spot you can come to, and within half an hour, sometimes even 5 casts, have 5 fish that are big enough to win your tournament, whether it's 20 pounds, 25, or sometimes 30. You know, you can find that spot doing this. That's one of the reasons I like this technique so much, is you never know when you're going to hit the mother lode. So I keep moving and I keep making short pitches until I find them. It's a nice little chunky fish, but that fish was right on the tip of a point in the grass. We're here at Lake Guntersville, and it's the beginning of June. The fish are just coming off beds. They're pretty much wrapping up the spawn, and they're moving out on these flats on their way out to their summer feeding spots. So we're gonna go flip some grass and see if we can kind of intercept them on their way out to the deep ledges. But I wanted to show you a little bit about what I look for on the map as far as where I usually start my search when I'm fishing this way. I like to start, it's the first thing I do when I get a map of the lake is I'll find the biggest area with the most flats. You know, the most flats usually have the most grass and hold the most fish. So that's usually where I'll start. I'll pick the biggest flat on the lake I can find and really kind of dissect that. And I look for ditches. The more different kinds of structure, the better. The more humps, ridges, ditches, etc. Usually the better the area is going to be. So right now we're in front of a popular area on Guntersville. It's called kind of the Goose Pond area in front of North Saudi, and it's got everything I was just talking about. It's got a lot of ditches, a lot of flats, and just different drains and dips and humps and ridges all over the place. So we're gonna kind of dissect this area and see if we can find something. I don't know if you've noticed, but every fish I've caught's been hooked really good right in the top of the jaw. And that's exactly where you want to be hooking them. This particular Pro Mega jig's got a 5/0 Gamakatsu flipping hook in it, and that seems to be doing the trick right now. Another little one, and that one was buried up in the grass pretty good. That happens a lot when you're fishing like this. When that happens, what you want to do is pull it out as fast as you can. You don't want to give it a lot of slack and mess around too much with it. That's where the heavy rod and the heavy line comes into play. You get his head moving, and you get the fish moving towards you, and the weeds will generally come right up. if for whatever reason that doesn't happen, I like to just reel down, get as close as I can and get right over it, and just put steady pressure on it until the weeds break free. And most of the times that happens. If that doesn't happen, you just got to pull as hard as you can and hope for the best. That last fish I just got, I pulled up a bunch of weeds with it, and this is the stuff I was talking about. This is milfoil here, and this particular milfoil is real green and real healthy, and that's really what you want to look for. The brown stuff and the dying stuff just doesn't produce the oxygen like the green stuff does, and it doesn't hold the bait fish and consequently the bigger fish in it. So the greener the grass you can find, usually the better fishing. You know, grass flipping is a technique that you can really use all across the country. I grew up over in East Texas doing it on lakes like Sam Rayburn and Toledo Bend. And there we'd mostly flip hydrilla. Usually you'd find the deepest hydrilla you could find. Sometimes it'd be all the way out to 21, 22 feet. And you'd flip along the edge until you found a big school of fish. But now I live on Guntersville, and flipping, although the principle is kind of the same, there are some little subtle differences. Like I was talking about earlier, there's a lot more milfoil flipping here than what we had back in Texas, and the fish in the milfoils have a tendency to spread out all throughout the grass bed and not just stick to the edges like they did in the deep hydrilla. You know, I've been to lakes up north where the same thing is true. Potomac River is a good example of that. You know, they could be anywhere in the grass bed, but still it's the same baits, you know, the same general idea. You just spend your time, you put a flipping stick in your hand and cover as much water as you can, and by the end of the day you hope you find an area that has a lot of fish. And usually especially when you're fishing a tournament, they're the right fish. They're the fish you can win off of. So anytime there's grass, I love picking up the big flipping stick and a jig and just doing it all day long. I've been using a black and blue jig today, but I decided to switch colors and see if we can do any better. So I've got it's a brand new Okeechobee Craw colored Pro Mega jig right out of the package. I figured I'd take a second to show you what I like to do with it when I get it out of the package. The first thing I do is I trim the skirt. You know, I like to trim it about a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch right below the bottom of the hook shank. So I use a pair of scissors, kind of trim it at an angle. What that does, it just lets the jig flare out a little more. The skirt will, when the jig hits the bottom, the skirt will flare out and it looks a little more natural. I also like to trim the weed guard on it. What I do is I draw a straight line parallel to the point of the hook and cut the weed guard. I start right at kind of the bottom of the V and make a straight line with the scissors, just running parallel with the tip of the hook. And what that does, it just lets you get better hook sets. You know, it's a lot less effort to get the point of the hook in the fish. That's pretty much it. They're pretty ready to go right out of the package. Another feature they have on them is rattle holders, which is pretty neat. The water's clear enough now where I'm not using them, but there are a lot of times when the rattles come in handy. So these are ready to put rattles in it if you need it. Oh, that's a good one. What an awesome fish. And this is why this is my absolute favorite way to fish, especially anytime there's grass. This 1 ounce Pro Mega jig, it will get you fish like this, and sometimes it'll even get you 5 of them. So, and that in a tournament's pretty hard to beat. So I hope I've been able to share something with you today, and I'm gonna let her go, and good luck to you. Anytime you're in a lake with grass, don't be afraid to try that 1 ounce Pro Mega jig.